Ready? Good morning, everybody. I am Mayor Tim Doherty, the town of Morristown. I want to welcome you all and everybody behind me to a wonderful historic town of Morristown and obviously what we're here for today. So it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce the great governor of the great state of New Jersey, the Honorable Governor Phil Murphy.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Thank you, Tim. What a treat to be in Morristown this morning. This is a big day for New Jersey, and I couldn't be happier that we're doing it in Morristown. So thank you for your leadership, your friendship, to you and the elected officials here in town and around Morris County. I know we got Mike Soriano in from Parsippany and others. I want to say thank you. It is a real pleasure to be back here in one of New Jersey's great communities, in one of New Jersey's truly both historic and hottest places. And I say that in the very best sense of the word. So thank you so much. I also want to thank all the advocates who are standing behind me and who are stalwart there day in and day out. So to each and every one of you. Pastor, I'm going to come to you later. Good to see you, man. I always seem to end up here to stand among friends in our shared commitment to creating a state that reflects and honors the values that we all hold so dear. I was proud to march here. I mentioned to Tim the last time I was standing in the foyer at the Green and be among the 15,000 strong with my wife Tammy, who came for the New Jersey Women's March literally days after I was inaugurated. I've done some really memorable St. Patrick's Days in Morristown. As a Murphy, I had to get that off my chest. To the best of my recollection, I was in Morristown. And hi, Mary. First Lady Mary Doherty's with us. Nice to see you. Honored to have you. And 13 months ago, yesterday, I was proud to stand here with young people from across Morris County to welcome the student leaders who emerged from the horrible tragedy at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland in a call for common sense gun safety. And it is that call that brings me and us back here today to stand alongside our extraordinary treasurer, Liz Moyle. Liz, great to have you with us. Our equally extraordinary Commissioner of Banking Insurance, Marlene Caride. Our Superintendent and State Police Colonel, the one and only Pat Callahan. Mrs. Callahan here somewhere?
She's in the back.
She's in the back. Please give her my best. We are all here today. We will also hear from Nick Saplina from Everytown. I also want to acknowledge our senior advisor on gun safety. I don't know where we'd be without him, Bill Kastner. And a bevy of colleagues who are with us today. We are here to sign an executive order committing our administration to a series of additional steps to combat the crisis of gun violence. And we will do that by using the state's purchasing power to our advantage. All of us up here, like all of you, take great pride that New Jersey is once again leading the nation in the effort to keep guns off our streets, to stop the flow of illegal guns into our state, and to keep guns out of the wrong hands through comprehensive gun safety laws, many of which I have to say my predecessor vetoed and which I have in turn signed. And we are seeing the results of our work. I am as proud of the A rating New Jersey received from the organization led by my dear friends Gabby Giffords and Captain Mark Kelly as I am of the F I personally received from the gun lobby. I always have to put a footnote on that as a father of 4 kids who are in school. That is the only F that I'm going to accept. But we know that we cannot rest on any laurels. We cannot stop. And we need legislators from communities that support common sense gun safety, whether it be communities like Morristown or Parsippany or Westfield, where we were a couple of months ago, among others, to support this essential work. Despite our efforts, every day, countless residents remain at risk of gun violence regardless of where they live. Each year, we lose an average of 280 New Jerseyans to gun-related homicides and 184 New Jerseyans to gun-related suicides. In addition, over 1,300 more residents will be injured by a shooting, including nearly 600 in unintentional shootings. And roughly 80% of crime guns flow into New Jersey from out of state, and you've heard me say that many times. Gun violence impacts suburban and rural communities just as it impacts our cities. It disproportionately impacts young people and communities of color. According to Giffords, the directly measurable cost of gun violence in New Jersey is more than $1.2 billion annually, more than $273 million of which is a cost to taxpayers. We have committed New Jersey to a whole-of-government approach to tackle gun violence. And now, under this executive order that I'll sign in a few moments, we will commit to bringing the gun manufacturing industry and gun retailers along with us. And we have an urgent responsibility to do this. After all, state, county, and local taxpayers are also overwhelmingly the state's largest gun buyers. We cannot let taxpayers unwittingly pad the pockets of anyone whose business practices may make the jobs of law enforcement even more dangerous or put our residents in harm's way. So under this order, New Jersey will review the practices and policies of both gun manufacturers and government-contracted gun retailers and request disclosure of their standards for preventing guns from being purchased by straw purchasers, firearms traffickers, or other prohibited individuals, for protecting against the theft of guns and ammunition, and for ensuring their employees both comply with New Jersey law and cooperate with law enforcement at all levels to promote public safety. If we find folks not living up to our standards, we reserve the rights to stop doing business with them moving forward. And where we find a retailer who is doing the right things but doesn't yet have the ability to compete for state contracts, we will gladly open the door to doing business with good actors that employ best practices, as many New Jersey dealers, I might add, already do. In addition, Treasurer Moyo and her team will request information from financial institutions New Jersey works with about their own policies and practices related to gun safety or responsible sales of firearms. Through the billions of taxpayer dollars that state, county, and local government and school boards, along with any number of other authorities at every level of government, invest in financial institutions annually, together we could create a strong impetus for the banks we do business with to join us in keeping the public safe from the proliferation of guns. Public entities should know which banks are taking meaningful action to reduce gun violence and which ones are not. And through our States for Gun Safety, which I'm proud to say Governor Wolf recently announced his intention for Pennsylvania to join, we will work with our fellow like-minded states to take similar steps so we can make this a coordinated and nationwide effort to cut off financing to bad apple retailers and suppliers. Finally, with great respect, I might add, I'm instructing the Commissioner Caridi in the Department of Banking and Insurance to take all appropriate action within 30 days to prohibit or limit the sale of any insurance product that may encourage gun use, such as firearms personal liability insurance that contains self-defense criminal reimbursement coverage. Oftentimes, that type of insurance effectively indemnifies irresponsible gun use. Just last week, the department shut down the gun lobby's illegal sales of such policies to New Jerseyans because they weren't licensed to sell insurance here. Now we're going to make sure that they don't try to come back. And we will undertake all of this work immediately. We will not waste any time in ensuring that the people we do business with and who do business with the state of New Jersey share our concerns and share our state's values. We may take pride in having among the nation's strongest laws and lowest rates of gun-related deaths, but there is only one number we should aim for, and that is 0. Today is another step to getting there. We will not sit back, cross our fingers, and hope that Washington takes meaningful action, although we do. States must do whatever they can to confront this crisis. And I know a lot of friends are here with us today to join in this. Individuals and organizations committed to ending the cycle of gun violence, including, I mentioned him earlier, Bishop Dr. Joshua Rodriguez, a dear friend in Jersey City together. Joshua, thank you for everything. The Hudson Partnership Care Management Organization, University Hospital, Moms Demand Action in Everytown, and Ceasefire NJ, in addition to Brady and Giffords and other organizations. I mentioned the Parkland tragedy earlier in my remarks, and that we were in Morristown 13 months to the day ago. I also want to say that I was with Fred Guttenberg yesterday, a dear friend. Fred's daughter, Jamie, a 14-year-old freshman, was murdered in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School on Valentine's Day of 2018. He wanted to make sure that I said that he was completely and full-throatedly in support of what we're doing today and what we've done on so many other days like this. And in her memory and in his honor, I'm wearing a pin he gave me yesterday. This is ribbons for Jamie, and that's her name on the ribbon. So God bless her and God rest her soul, along with so many others who have lost their lives. So it's now my pleasure to bring up, speaking on behalf of the many advocates here today, an organization that is in the fight as every one of these organizations are, and I don't know where we'd be without them. Please help me welcome the Managing Director for Law and Policy at Everytown, Nick Ciplina. Nick?
Well, thank you, Governor, very much for that. It's really a pleasure to be here today, standing with so many strong advocates and elected leaders that are committed to this fight. I'm grateful to be here today to applaud Governor Murphy's executive action. His leadership on this issue since his first days in office has helped make the Garden State safer and serves as an example for others to follow. Gun violence has no place in our houses of worship, movie theaters, schools, or our communities. And the state of New Jersey has shown time and again that it will do all it can to prevent these tragedies, and today is no exception. We know the gun industry has a responsibility to do everything in its power to keep guns from those who shouldn't have them, and to combat illegal trafficking of the weapons they produce and sell. But they haven't done enough. The groundbreaking executive order being signed today will use New Jersey's procurement power to hold the industry accountable for the business practices and their contribution to gun violence in the state of New Jersey. To put it simply, today's action, Governor Murphy is doing what all leaders should do. He's putting his money where his mouth is. By leveraging the state's procurement power to ensure that firearms manufacturers and retailers have common sense safeguards in place, this order will help keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. Just as importantly, maybe even more, this EO will require that financial institutions who work with the gun industry clients disclose whether they adhere to these practices. This approach is innovative, it's impactful, and it's common sense. And we hope that Washington takes notice. Just yesterday, Congress returned from its August recess, during which thousands of Moms Demand Action volunteers and others in the movement across the country sent a clear message: enough is enough. Months ago, the House of Representatives passed H.R. 8, which would require background checks on all gun sales, and will consider other life-saving legislation in Congress this week. But now all eyes are on the Senate as lawmakers decide whether they're going to side with the majority, the vast majority of the American people, or stay with the radical politics of the NRA. While Everytown and Moms Demand Action and all of our allies will put all of our resources and energy into forcing the Senate to act in the public's interest, New Jersey should take comfort knowing that its governor needs no lesson in leadership. Today, the Garden State has made again clear that it cannot and it will not wait for Congress to act. I sincerely thank Governor Murphy, Bill Kastner, and all those who worked to make today possible for their leadership and commitment to the fight to end gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for speaking on behalf of this extraordinary group. Chris Brown, who runs Brady, was intending to be here today, but she's on a train that is delayed and couldn't be. And I'm only happy to say it wasn't an NJ Transit train. It was an Amtrak matter, so one in a row. Please help me welcome a leader in this fight and in so many other that we are waging every day to make the state the stronger and fairer New Jersey that we have committed to. Please help me welcome the Commissioner for the Department of Banking and Insurance, Marlene Currier.
Good morning, everyone. Governor, Mayor, Madam Treasurer, Colonel, and of course, our distinguished guests and our advocates. I would like to take this opportunity to commend the Governor for putting the safety of New Jersey residents first, and for holding accountable the entities that profit from doing business with the gun industry. Gun violence continues to claim innocent lives at an alarming rate. We cannot allow this to be the new norm. Last year, we at Dobie launched an investigation into CarryGuard self-insurance program, which was being administered in the state by insurance broker Locked In Affinity on behalf of the NRA. The program, as described by the governor earlier, provided personal firearms liability insurance, including self-defense insurance to gun owners. It also advertised paying gun owners compensation while in court, firearms replacement, and cleanup costs. Among other violations, the department investigation found that Locked In Affinity, a licensed insurance producer that contracted with the NRA, permitted the NRA to directly market and solicit for the CarryGuard insurance program in New Jersey. While Locked In Affinity is licensed by the department, the NRA is not. Last week, Locked In Affinity acknowledged responsibility and agreed to pay a $1 million fine as part of a consent order entered with the department for its actions. In this case, the violation was serious and notable, given that the insurance product encouraged improper firearm use. The department continues to investigate other firearm-related insurance programs for potential violations of our laws. Details regarding this and any other investigation will be made publicly available if and when an enforcement action is taken. I want to thank the governor for taking executive action to fight gun violence. As a state regulating entity, it is our job at Dobie to ensure that the insurance industry is complying with our state regulations and laws. As a state, we have a responsibility to act in the best interest of our residents and to ensure that our policies and practices put public safety above all. We are committed to joining with our state partners under the leadership of the governor to fight against the plague of gun violence and to hold accountable those who profit from it. Thank you.
Matt Claxton, nice to see you, man. I didn't see you there earlier. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Marlene. With that, I'd like to again bring up someone who's in that fight every single day for the stronger and fairer New Jersey that we're committed to. Please help me welcome our treasurer, Liz Moyo. Madam, nice to see you.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor to join you here today. On behalf of the Treasury Department, we are proud to support your commitment to protecting the safety and welfare of New Jersey's residents. Like you said, absent leadership at the federal level, it's incumbent upon states to stand up and do everything we can. And under your leadership, New Jersey is showing that there are many smart, practical steps that can be taken to promote gun safety without infringing on anyone's rights. Gun violence is an issue that affects everyone, regardless of age, race, zip code, or socioeconomic background. And it requires a concerted effort from everyone to ensure a safer future for our children and for our grandchildren. When the tragedy at Columbine occurred in 1999, my oldest was in first grade. Just a few weeks ago, 20 years later, I sent my youngest off to college. And so much has changed during that time, and I don't need to tell anybody here what a different world it is for students and children here in the United States. We have to help prepare them for the worst while still encouraging them to hope for the best. That's a huge burden for children to bear. So I agree wholeheartedly. We need to step up to the plate and do more to protect our communities at all costs by using the power of our purse strings to set an example for others. The EO being signed today will ensure that taxpayers' dollars are being used wisely to support good actors and those who are eager to do better, to procure goods and services from companies that are willing to go the extra mile because they understand what is at stake, and to encourage private companies to act responsibly and support local and county governments who want to follow our lead. The scourge of gun violence is a generational challenge that can't be solved by any one person or one entity. It requires a vast, multifaceted approach and a concerted commitment from every agency with the power to effect change. So I'm proud to stand here with my colleagues and with the governor today to affirm Treasury's support in carrying out these sensible reforms. I know our Treasury Department personnel are committed to fulfilling this critical mission. We stand ready to assist, and we know how much is at stake. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Liz, for those words. I'm going to make a couple of comments. Whoa, my Lord, we can't let that happen. Okay. Mayor, as usual, you're there for the rescue. We good? After the Colonel speaks and before we take a couple of questions and sign the executive order, there are a couple of sort of framing comments I wanted to make, but not before I bring up our final speaker, an extraordinary leader in law enforcement, an extraordinary human being. Please help me welcome our Superintendent, Colonel Pat Callahan.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mayor, for hosting. It's good to be back in my home county as a boy who was born and raised in Bud Lake, so it's always good to be in Morristown. I was thinking as I was just standing here about my role as the State Director of Emergency Management as well as mine as Colonel and Jersey Trooper, and I think about disasters and crisis and challenges similar to the gun violence one that we're up against. So I put that emergency manager hat on, and I think about prevention, and I think about mitigation. I think about all the efforts that we put into those things so we don't have to respond. We do have to train and be ready to respond, but the whole idea, and I think from what the governor has passed in the past 2 years, I think this executive order is about prevention, it's about mitigation, it's about keeping things, I know we say left of boom, in this case I might want to say left of bang, with the whole idea behind it to make sure that no officer, that no trooper has to knock on somebody's door and tell them that their daughter or son or brother and sister isn't coming home because of a crime gun that was out on the streets in the state of New Jersey. So I'm honored to be a part of the team that is striving to bring it down to zero. I think that goal is certainly a lofty one, but I think this executive order will go a long way. I know there's some rhetoric out there that thinks there's law enforcement or would be jeopardized by certain things. I personally and professionally do not believe that. I think this executive order will make us all safer, and although I'll speak for myself and on behalf of the Jersey Troopers, I know we have Morristown officers over here, and I don't think any one of us would be behind anything that put law enforcement's lives in jeopardy, and that's not the case with this EO. So I appreciate your support and allowing me a few minutes, Governor, to offer that up. So let's keep it left of bang, as I say, and God bless you all. Thanks.
Thanks, Pat. This is you, right? So just before we throw it open for a couple of questions, and again, I want to thank everyone here today. There are basically three pieces of this. One is directed at vendors, manufacturers, and distributors of firearms and ammunition. Secondly are financial institutions. And in each of those cases, that's going to be overseen by Liz, because the Department of Purchasing is under her aegis, as well as obviously our relationship with financial institutions. And then the third piece, which Marlene will oversee, is to make sure we don't have unintended insurance running through New Jersey that encourages irresponsible behavior. It's important for me to add to that, and I'll say in specific to the gun vendors, the manufacturers and retailers. We want this to be a constructive relationship. This is not intended as at day one as an adversarial act. This is to express a broad statement of principles that matter to us and values that matter to us deeply. In many cases, we believe the extant manufacturers and retailers who do business with us adhere to these values. So we enter this with a constructive mindset, that we can have a 1 + 1 = 3 result, that good can come from this, that there are entities of goodwill out there. I think Bill reminded me, is it Brady who has concluded, and the Brady folks can back me up here, that only about 5% of the vendors in this country contribute about 90% of the bad weapons that infiltrate our communities. So the bad actor community in particular, that's a group that we want to see that 5% get as fast as possible to 0, and we don't ever want to do business with any bad actors. So with that, we'll take a couple of questions. Matt. Come on in, Bill, in case we have some, please. And what's your second one? I think it is, on the second one, I think it is a coincidence. On the first one, Bill, how much money are we talking about here?
Yes.
Bill Castor, by the way.
According to, I just want to thank the governor. I think the governor in less than 2 years has done more than Congress has in over 20 years. So I think he ought to get a great appreciation for that.
Thank you.
Matt, the recent purchasing for firearms, ammunition, repair parts, accessories, and other supplies approximates $70 million. That's state only. That's a broader category of just guns and ammo. And municipalities in New Jersey, counties have the ability to purchase similar firearms, ammunition, supplies through DPP under the Department of Treasury. That number is indeterminate.
And I think, Liz, we pay about $1 billion a year in fees to financial institutions. Does that sound about right? Plus or minus, so the amount, these are big numbers. Please.
Also a two-part question, one having not to do with the other. The first one is on topic. Besides gun manufacturing companies or ammunition companies, it was mentioned by Liz that this executive order would encourage companies to act responsibly. Can you give an example of what kind of a company are you talking about, and how would they act responsibly? And then my second question has to do with the
Okay, that would be way off topic. So this would be a manufacturer or a retailer who adhere to principles such as universal background checks, not selling weapons or ammunition to persons who should not have the ability to buy them, broad-based values, deliberately so that we're not sending out a pre-baked, cut, set in stone, please sign this or you can't do business with us. But it is an effort to sort of find common ground on principles such as I've mentioned a couple of important ones, as well as retailers who do business with the state. Is that fair? Anyone? It does not include local governments unless the state is involved in the purchase of the ammunition or the guns or the repair. But I would hope the state, as the biggest player, particularly obviously with the state police, that we could lead by example, and that would bring behavior along at the local level as well.
And just
Come on in, Liz. You guys could get a little closer.
Just to follow up on the local angle,
Completely
many local governments and purchasing entities utilize the state vendor list in order to make their purchases.
That's a fair point. Okay, the second was on India.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to India, I believe on Friday, this is to do, what are you trying to accomplish? How is this going to help the New Jersey economy? How will this affect jobs?
So I'll give you the quick, because I want to respect the reason why we're here today. 7-day trip, 6 cities. I'd say 70 or 80% related to jobs and investment. And the rest of it will be some government interactions, cultural, religious, higher education. We have among the largest Indian American populations of any American state, and we have the single largest by percent. And we also already have a significant amount of firms that are invested in New Jersey and employ thousands of people, particularly in life sciences, technology, and telecommunications. So our hope is to thank them for their investment, to encourage them to make a bigger investment and hire more folks in our state, and to get folks who may not be here yet to consider coming here. Brett, a belated happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you very much. The Sponge talks, how have they been going with lawmakers? Do you think they're going to confirm? So where do you think that's going?
I hope they do. I think they've been constructive, and I'm hopeful. I believe that the changes that we made are meaningful and have strengthened this. I have nothing but regard for the sponsors and the folks in the legislature who have wanted to break the back of this awful reality in our state. But I think we made it stronger, particularly as it relates to automatic clean slate expungement, particularly as it relates to sealed, prospectively going forward, sealed low-end marijuana offenses. So I'm hopeful and optimistic. Nick, you had your hand up, and I the other half of the Blues Brothers here with the glasses, I didn't recognize you. Yeah. Yep. I'm not. I'm going to, in all likelihood, see him tomorrow morning at the 9/11 memorial services, and I'm going to raise, if we have a private moment or two, I'm going to raise it with him. We've not put it on the docket at the principals level with the states for gun safety leadership, but Bill and we and the whole team have spoken about doing that sooner than later. Sir. Yep. So this is on vaping and this whole crisis. We are examining all of our options. Let me start there. The Department of Health and the Commissioner, I think as of Friday night, if I'm not mistaken, put on our website guidance from the CDC, number one, and number two, a plea that no one should be vaping until further notice. We're considering all options, but I think you hold that thought and watch the space, because I'm certain we will be taking more actions at some point. Please. So first of all, whether this executive order or not, and Pat knows this better than anybody, safety and security of our residents is job number one for me, for him, and for all of us. So this is I don't have to say this, Liz alluded to it, this is an extraordinarily complex and challenging world we're in. So vigilance in trying to prevent, as Pat said, any action is job number one. How soon will this make an impact? I think we're giving, in all cases, 30 days. To come back to us with a statement of principles. So that's the vendors, the financial institutions. Is yours more immediate, Marlene, or is it 30 days? Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. My gut tells me the most immediate impact is likely going to be with Marlene, because the unintended insurance policies that encourage irresponsible behavior is something we want to root out as fast as possible. And it's to be determined what we get back from the vendors and the financial institutions. We will. One thing I promise you is once we're through this first phase in review, we'll come back in some form or fashion and let you know what we've learned. Maybe do one more here, Michael.
What exactly are you doing in relation to financial?
In relation to? We reserve that right. The step we're taking now is to go to financial institutions and give us back their principles as it relates to gun safety, lending that they do, investing that they may do. And so it's an information phase for the first 30 days. At the end of that, depending on what we get back, we reserve the right to either increase business in places that, where the principles are strong and consistent with our values, or decrease businesses where they're not, and that's a decision that Liz and her team will make. I don't want you ever to say I didn't take a question from you.
I appreciate that. My birthday's January 5th.
Okay, so I'm sorry I missed it.
So in regards to the insurance programs, are you focusing more on the criminal activity of it? Because the insurance companies I spoke to said a lot of retired law enforcement officers utilize that program because they want to be protected. And if in case there's ever a self-defense shooting situation, they want to be protected against an overzealous prosecutor continuing to court and spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. What are your thoughts on that? Are you talking about the criminal actors or just misbehavior? What about the people that are lawfully using a firearm?
Not just because you're asking it. I think we've said this time and time again that we respect the Second Amendment, and we recognize that most folks in and around guns and ammunition are honorable, law-abiding citizens, and so that's not our intention. But overall, obviously, if it's criminal and bad behavior, but overall, we also don't want to encourage irresponsible behavior, regardless of whose behavior that is. And we believe some of these insurance policies do that, and we want to cut that out. I want to thank, we'll come back to you, we'll follow up with you. I want to thank everybody. Mayor, thank you for hosting us in this extraordinary, historic, and hot community of Morristown. To the other elected officials, and we love Parsippany, by the way, Mike, don't get me wrong, our friends from Morris County, in particular, Pat and all the members of law enforcement, members of our cabinet. Bill, thank you so much for your advice. And last, but certainly not least, the advocates who have been with us every step of the way. Thank you all so much. And Nick, thank you for speaking on behalf of them. With that, let's go get this done.
He's locked.
Without the work of our senior advisor on gun safety, Bill Castro. Bill. This is now in force, and we are taking action literally immediately. Thank you again, everybody. chairs. Your position is